you guys are all having a good morning. This session is called Build Your Career and Your Personal Brand with the Salesforce Ecosystem. My name is Dreshfield, and we're just going to get started. So, a little bit about me. Obviously, I work for Aptus. You probably realize that with the bright green shirt. And for me, the whole thing about the Salesforce ecosystem is really the community and the people and the connections you can make. I'm a 4-time Salesforce MVP. You can see where I blog there. And if anybody of you has heard of a thing called Midwest Dreamin', Peter Coffey even mentioned it yesterday. I started that in 2011, just out of the passion of sharing stuff to the community. So back in my pre-Salesforce days, when I graduated college, I took a bunch of jobs. I kind of bounced around through working for a couple of universities, worked at an airline, worked for Walmart, and eventually wound up at this little fiber to the home telecommunications company. Had what I thought was really a cool job, really fun. And then they got bought out, and I went down this little dotted line of all these dark green dots where life was crazy, and I had 2.5 years of struggling to find a job, working whatever I could do, part-time jobs, contract jobs. I was even unloading a truck at a retail store, and part of the time I was literally working 20 hours a day. I figured when I got home and saw my wife and kids and I knew who I wasn't gone too long. It was horrible. I hated it. And then I stumbled into this job at this company called Mitchell. They hired me as a temporary call center agent for what was supposed to be an 8-week job. They were rolling out one new software product, and they needed people to support their clients. So I got 3 days of training, and I was live on the phone talking to their customers. Calls were really slow. They had 4 of us start the same day, and we each took maybe 4 calls a day. So they quickly whittled it down to just a handful of us, and after 6 months, I was the only one left out of that crew. They trained me on a whole bunch of other stuff, and then one day HR calls and says, "Hey, we've got a permanent job available in the call center doing what you're doing now. Are you interested?" I said, "Heck yeah, more money, benefits, security, all that stuff." And they said, "Cool, part of that process, you got to talk to our vice president. She's over the call center, she's over enterprise business solutions and a whole bunch of other stuff." And she gets on the phone with me. She was in San Diego. I was in Evansville, Indiana. She jumps on the phone. We have this interview. And her first question to me is, "Why are we wasting your time and ours having you talk to our customers when there's so many other things you can do with us? And I'd like you to help us roll out the Service Cloud with Salesforce.com." And my reaction to that was, well, it's the only job you have offered, for one thing. And then I said, "What's Salesforce?" I'd never heard of it. And back then she said, "Don't worry about it. You've got the skills I think that I'm looking for. I think you can handle it." I said, "Okay, fine, let's do it." And that pushed me down this little path. She said, "I can't afford to send you to training, so hook up with a user group, get connected, learn as much as you can, meet a whole bunch of people." So I spent 6, 7, 8 months spending 2 days a week on the road, or 2 days a month on the road, traveling to a whole bunch of user groups around the Midwest. And finally thought, this is really silly. There's got to be more than just me in Southern Indiana using Salesforce. So I called Salesforce up and they said, "How do you start a user group? What's the process?" And they pretty much told me, "You just started one by volunteering." I said, "Oh, wow. Okay, so that was easy, I guess." So I started the user group in 2010. And then the company I was working for still at that point in time, I found out about Dreamforce. I said, "Hey, can I go?" They said, "We don't have the budget. All our technical people need to go." I was a reporting analyst for them, so all the developers and the admins and all those kinds of people really needed to be the ones going. They said, "Sorry, you can't go. We can't afford it." And I said, "Okay." So I had this wild idea. Let's bring Dreamforce to me. And that was the idea that for me to start Midwest Dreamin'. And in 2011, I held that event in Louisville, Kentucky. It was basically a one-day super user group meeting. Brought in some partners to do presentations. And it was a full day of soaking up the ecosystem. I had 100 people show up, which back in that day I thought was really pretty decent. So I kept running the user group. I kept getting active with the community and things like that. And in 2013, I got named a Salesforce MVP for the first time. And I didn't have a clue why. I really didn't think I did anything special. I didn't understand it, but it was cool. So 2014 rolls around. I go to Dreamforce. Aptus invited some of us MVPs to a special session the day after Dreamforce to give us a deep dive look into their quote to cash as well as their ex-author product, and I just sort of fell in love with that stuff. And the tweet down there is one that I did back then. And immediately I started talking to Aptus and said, I love your products. I want to come work for you. And so what they kind of told me was, great, look at the website, find a job you're interested in, we'll have another conversation. And that went on for 18 months. And I finally said, you don't have anything that interests me. And they came back and they said, well, tell us what you're interested in. Where's your passion lie? What do you want to do? And so I said, well, I love the user group community. I love the success community. I like helping people. And your ex-author product blew me away, so I want to do something with that. And ultimately, they built this position for me where I'm now a product evangelist for ex-author. And through that whole process with the user group and some other things I was doing, I sort of was unknowingly creating a personal brand. And so this slide kind of outlines the 4 main keys that I see as building a brand for yourself. The first being, don't be afraid to get out there and put yourself out there. Talk to people, do whatever it needs, whatever you feel like. I mean, start a blog if you think you have something to say. Somebody's going to listen. Social media is a good way of doing that as well. But the key to that really is to build some trust and get some followers. And to do that, you need to deliver a consistent message. And that's not necessarily the same topic all the time, but consistent across what you're passionate about, really. And consistent timing-wise. So if you're going to do a blog series and you tell everybody, I'm going to do it every week, try to do it every week. All the logos you can see on there are some of the places where you can help build your brand, or are some logos of other Salesforce MVPs that have their own brand. Button Click Admin down there, for example, was Mike Gerholt. Now he works for Salesforce. And then number 3 on the tips, they're really stay engaged. Don't just post it and forget it. If people are commenting back on your posts, make sure you have a conversation with them, because that's where the fun starts, is when you're having conversations with people. And then it's weird. My last tip kind of counteracts number 2, where I tell you stay consistent, and then I say mix it up. But if you want to get more engagement, fresh content, something totally different, as long as you kind of stay true to your passions, it works. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Eric.
David.
He's a good man there. Learned a lot from him. My name's David. I work at Google. I'm a technical architect there.
Sure. There we go.
Guess I forgot to delete one slide.
Like Kyla and like Eric, I'm a Salesforce MVP. I have certifications, and great achievements. But I actually, when I look back at my career, I define it as just a series of crushing failures. Here's how my career works. So when I was raised, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, and like most parents, and I had an older sister who was like the scholar. Like, she was like the wonderful kid, and I was like always the black sheep. And I didn't do well in high school, and I didn't get into a great Ivy League college. So right off the bat, I started off as a failure. I love UC Davis though. That place is amazing. From there, I got my first job as a professional email spammer, which didn't really help my cause very much. Literally sending out thousands and thousands of spam to people, just like thinking at night, like, what have I done with my life? Like, how did I get here? Things still didn't get much better there, but luckily I lucked into the Salesforce industry. We had a Salesforce admin who really didn't enjoy his job, a lot of parts of his job, and so all the garbage work he just gave it to me, manual uploads, all this stuff. I did that for a while, and it was painful, but things were getting a little bit better. Like, I was actually able to dream a little bit. And, I was so lucky I stumbled into the Salesforce industry. I dreamed of making big impact in my company, big impact in the community, all this stuff. Dreamed of being a coder, actually. And I remember thinking, like, okay, I failed at so many things in my life already. Like, I don't want to fail at coding. In fact, like, I wanted to learn coding so bad that, like, I didn't want to die knowing that I didn't try it. Right? I was okay with trying to learn to code and giving it 100% and failing. It was okay to be a failure as long as I gave it 100%. Anyways, after that, I got a job as a Salesforce developer, luckily. And things started to look a little bit better. And I had always wanted to work at Google, and I thought I'd give it a shot. But another series of failures happened, and I was rejected by Google 10 times for my current job. They just kept on rejecting me. But I kept on applying and calling them and emailing them. And eventually I got the job. From there, I thought I wanted to give back and teach other people how to code. I started a website, and luckily I won the Salesforce MVP award. Anyways, here are my tips for you. 2 tips that I've learned in my career. Number 1, you have to embrace failure, right? Don't let failure define you. I could have quit. I could have stopped applying after number 10. But I got in on number 11. And the first 10 don't even matter anymore, right? Like, it doesn't matter how many times I was rejected, because now I'm in. And it's really hard to get fired at Google. So, like, so I'm in. That's the first. And someone at my sister's wedding once said, like, look at every failure as an opportunity. I've never forgotten that. Second one, this is like the formula for my life. What the top says is, if you increase your knowledge by 1% every day, you're going to be 38 times better. And so no matter what hill you're climbing, no matter what you're trying to learn in your career, make sure to devote a little bit of time every day just to take one step closer, right? Journey of 1,000 miles begin with one step. So just every day force yourself to do a little bit. Next, we have the wonderful Kyla.
I don't need the mic, but I do need the clicker. Thank you, David. I am Kyla Longe. I'm also Salesforce MVP, and I work for National Association of Independent Schools as a senior Salesforce administrator. And I'm also going to talk to you about the power of building your community, and how it's been impactful for me in my career. I want to talk to you a little bit about starting out with a theater degree and job hopping and being all over the country. And then landing a job that ends up with the accidental admin, right? I'm sure we have a few of these in the room. Yes? Okay. We're at the desk or at the table at the meeting, and the boss says, we need somebody to take this over. The Salesforce thing, does anybody want to do it? I said, well, I'm doing that terrible spreadsheet thing, so I'm going to totally see if this is better. And it was a match made in heaven. I loved it. I thought it was a great tool. I ended up getting an email from Salesforce Foundation, which is what .org was called at the time. Hey, we're going to explore having a nonprofit-specific user group in Austin, Texas. So, we're just going to see if people want to do this, right? I show up. I'm like, look, I don't know this Salesforce thing yet. I can totally order lunches, track RSVPs. I can hang. I can do this. If you need the help, but by all means, if somebody knows more about this, get help from somebody who knows more about Salesforce. And sure enough, ran the nonprofit user group for over 2 years, brought in new leadership when I jumped ship, getting my certifications and taking a job in consulting, eventually opening my own consulting organization for nonprofit organizations, and ultimately earning the Salesforce MVP through time in the community, giving back to nonprofits that needed traction on the Salesforce tool. The MVP thing, I hope I'll get time to talk about in a second here. But the thing that actually I had to pause over last year after a little more job hopping, consulting, was I took this moment to think about, what, I really need to have a goal in my career. And so I thought about, okay, I need to think, where can I be where I will continue to learn and develop my skills? And I'll need to also enjoy the work that I'm doing and feel like I'm providing value and really like making traction with the organization I work for. But I also want to stay in demand. I really want to make sure that no matter what, I could always get a better job somewhere, making whatever money is, in that industry and that title. And so that was my career growth sweet spot, in that middle of that Venn diagram there. I was like, whatever this job is, that's where it is for me. And so I thought about my resume from the future, and I decided actually I want to be a technical architect. And in order to do that, you have to be working in an organization that has really deep code and lots of data and just really kind of stuff to get your teeth, sink your teeth into. And so I ended up with this job, working on this platform of a product that's built on a Salesforce platform with 2 million characters of code and lots of data, and lots of customers. So I am now working as an admin in that type of work, which will hopefully set me up for that goal of getting that certification. But I also want to pause and talk to you a little bit about salary. This is a very important thing about navigating your career. If you don't know what you're worth for the title that you're going for, you'll have a really hard time negotiating your job. And I'm not going to talk you through all these numbers because you can read them. But just take a look. This is current as of earlier this year. They're from a recruiting organization that I'm affiliated with. And if you have taken a job for less than this, know this, that you will never have a better opportunity to negotiate more salary for yourself at that position. There will never be a bonus. There will never be a raise that will be commiserate with getting you to the salary that you deserve. So that opportunity when you're first negotiating is your chance, and you have more leverage than you think. And if you feel like you want 110, ask for 10% more. And they're never going to give you their best offer the first time, so counter. Okay? So you volley to them, they volley to you and back. And ultimately, this is my salary one day, right? This is the job that I've decided I want in my future. And I hopefully will be making even more than this, right, in a couple of years. I want to encourage you to craft your own resume from the future. Do that little homework assignment I took a pause to do last year. And think about what the gaps are in your resume, whatever that job looks like to you. Because you need to start working on them now. You need to start going after the certifications. You need to start taking classes, even if they're not Salesforce related. Maybe you need to take business analyst classes or work your skills in some other way. Maybe you need to start managing somebody because the job you want is a VP of a team of people. So start crafting that resume now so that you can fill those holes in that resume. And it does look like I have time to talk a little bit about Salesforce MVP. We're all Salesforce MVPs here up on stage, and we get asked about it all the time. What is the Salesforce MVP? How do you become a Salesforce MVP? What did you do to get this thing? And you've heard a little bit about how we contributed somehow to the Salesforce ecosystem and the community. It was very different for all of us, but at the end of the day, we were nominated for the MVP. We were reviewed for the MVP, and we were awarded the MVP. And every year we get reevaluated. They take a look at us, our peers look at us, make sure we're still contributing and giving back and providing that value. So it's not a popularity contest, but it is ultimately something that's been very valuable to our careers, our networks. The people in the program are some of the smartest and most prolific in the sheer quantity and fabulous quality of the work. But the real point, I think, was made best by Salesforce MVP Gary Polmatier. And he said, don't try to be an MVP just to be an MVP. It is a great place to be, and it's a great award. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of work, and we do it because we love it. So if you have any questions about that or about anything else that we've talked about with you, it would be that time. Any questions? Yes?
So how important in building your brand, building your career, was it to have mentors in that process? And how is it for you now today mentoring others?
So the question is about how important to us was it to have mentors in our career path, and how important is it as we move forward mentoring others?
Let me answer that one real quick.
Yeah.
I'll start. The very first user group meeting I went to, as soon as I walked through the door and checked in at the desk, the leaders of that particular group made me feel like family instantly. I mean, there was an instant bond there. Denise Carboni was running the Chicago user group at the time, and she still leads it today. I view her as one of my mentors back then. She's my right-hand person with the Midwest Dreaming Organization. She's helped me plan it every single year it's happened. And there are several other people out in the community right now that I am mentoring, whether it's as a user group leader or those people who would like to figure out the secret sauce, if you will, to becoming an MVP. And I spend a lot of time talking to all these various individuals about how they're giving back to the community today, and ways that I think they can improve, or different angles they might want to take. There's a fairly new guy in the community who's pretty active, who started a blog series recently, and I'm reviewing all of his blog posts before he publishes them, just to give him some feedback and I mean, check grammar and things like that, which I don't necessarily know very well, but I kind of review his overall content and message, and let him know if he's kind of delivering it the way I think it needs to be. So, and we probably all kind of do similar mentoring and mentor-y.
No, I don't. Blog posts make me anxious.
I thought that too until I started it.
I feel like while I know I've had people approach me and say, your mentorship has been invaluable, or I have the job that's my dream job because of, you know, something you said to me or that time, or, you know, there are those interactions, those moments that people have that, and I have certainly had those moments. I would encourage you to challenge the concept of mentoring being like the end-all be-all, because you could, by, you know, connecting with others, even if they don't see themselves as your mentor or you don't see them as a mentor, that connection is pretty powerful. And maybe you do end up having a formal person or committee that you go to as like your board of advisors, so to speak. Great. You know, there's all sorts of literature about that being very valuable. There's bloggers that talk about that and podcasters. But I would challenge you to look a little bit beyond that, because I think we use it a little bit as a crutch that I didn't find my mentor, but it can be really valuable.
Mentoring has been a little bit weird for me. So like, none of my mentors like actually agreed to be my mentor. Like they're all like gods in my opinion. They're sick and tired of me gushing over them when I see them, like Jason Venable, Stephen Harrod, Dan Appleman, good people. So you can always do that too. Mentoring is great and always feels weird to me. I stopped mentoring for like 3 months, and I was like, wow, my life sucks. Like, and I started back again, and then I was happy again. So, like, if you ever get the chance, it's great.
It feels good to provide that help for others. Any other questions for us? Yes.
If you were to give more weight to Trailhead and hands-on more of the certifications?
That's an interesting question. David has a few certifications. I think, Kyla, you have a few as well.
5, yeah.
And I have 0. And actually, to be honest with you, I have maybe 12 or 15 Trailhead badges. So I'm low, if you will, on the knowledge. But personally, I can see value in both of them, even though I have very few of each of them. But it wasn't the path that got me to where I wanted to go. For me, it was all about passion and the product that I was interested in. I mean, for people like David, who's really interested in gung-ho coding, or Kyla, who has that mindset on, I want to be the technical architect, my opinion, Trailhead's great to learn some of those things, and it can help you gain the certifications. But if you have those end goals in mind like they do, I think certification's probably the way to go.
It helps for visibility, for your LinkedIn profile, for example, to have the certifications. If you're doing the work, though, the certifications actually become very easy. So I actually think, again, encourage you to look at that resume and kind of see, okay, maybe I need a different job to help me get deeper in some of these things. If you're like Service Cloud consultant is what you want, or Sales Cloud, you need to be working in the tool set. But I actually think I would encourage you to look at user groups and go to all the meetings. And if there's not user groups, start a user group. I have gotten so much more value out of starting and running groups, and so much more visibility, and so much more learning and skill development out of running these groups, because a user comes to me and they say, oh, I want to learn about the thing. It's like, well, you're one of my members, and I bet other people that are members want to learn about the thing. So I'm like, I don't know about the thing, so I have to go research the thing and go find the speaker for the thing, and then we all learn, and it provides exposure. So, yeah.
Agreed.
And you wouldn't expect to learn Spanish in one day a month, right? Go into your one user group meeting. Go to the developer user group meeting, even if you don't want to be a developer. Go to the women in tech group to be an ally if you're a man, or to grow your career as a woman. So yeah, go to all the meetings.
So we're out of time. If you have more questions, track us down, Twitter or whatever.
Find us in the community,
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Thanks a lot.